Chapter 1, and we're looking at an overview of the EMS as a whole, EMS systems. And we are in the AEMT book. Hopefully everybody's got that. So, we're going to be looking into some introduction slides here. So, preparatory stuff and get into the meeting of this chapter. So, we'll get a fundamental knowledge of the EMS system, the safety and well-being of the advanced EMT, some of the medical, legal, and ethical issues that may arise in medical care. Look into EMS systems, how they differ, the history of EMS, and how young it is really, and where we're possibly going into the future. Roles, responsibility, professionalism of EMS personnel as a whole, not just the advanced EMT, but everybody involved in EMS in general. Quality improvement practices, also some research into emergency medical responder care, data collection, evidence-based decision making, and then how we incorporate into public health as a whole. EMS is a system. This chapter plans to describe the system's key components, how they influence and affect advanced EMTs, administration, medical direction, quality control, and regulation of EMS services. So, we do have roles and responsibilities. EMS in general is a team of healthcare professionals. We work with many different professions, many different levels of care, from the lay person to the dispatchers to EMTs and above and beyond us, the hospital personnel. We are all working together to help people that call and initiate the 911 system. We are in the pre-hospital setting mostly, so we're out there in the streets helping these people get to a facility of appropriate care, and then we may also integrate into the hospital and help integrate into transport of these people to a facility of appropriate care, or from one facility to another facility that can give a higher level of care. We are either part of our local EMS system, so you may be just in a township or municipality, a local rural town EMS group, or you may be a regional or part of a regional EMS system. Here in North Carolina, we have the capability of working in both. So we work locally in our counties, and we follow local medical control, local protocols. Then we branch out into our regional trauma systems, where we'll work out into local level 1 hospitals, and we become part of a regional group, and then we have also a statewide system. So we are governed by local state laws and typically regulated by a state EMS office, and we are in North Carolina also, the North Carolina Office of EMS, which falls up under the Department of Health and Human Services. So we do have some officials there too, and some rules and general statutes to follow. Emergency personnel must be state licensure or certified. So if you have a certificate, usually you have to take an exam. Is to ensure that all healthcare providers have at least the same basic level of knowledge and skill. Once you pass that exam, you may be eligible to apply for a state licensure, and a licensure is how a state controls who is allowed to practice as a healthcare provider. At this time, North Carolina only has the certificate. Hopefully, in the future, we will be a licensed profession, but that's here to come. So now we want to look into the 4 training levels. First, we have emergency medical responders. These are medically trained professionals to arrive on scene. The basic skill set, CPR, quick wound care assessments, and basically to give a quick scene size up to help us out. Emergency medical technicians also have training in BLS. They may include automated extracorporeal defibrillators, AEDs, some airway adjuncts, some oxygen therapy, some basic drugs, maybe some PA drugs, different things like that they can give before we arrive. You may also have like FE 1 to 10,000, FE 1 to 1,000 being given. As a lot of these medications are being given and taken home by lay people from doctors' offices and different things like that. So you may see these things, and people have already said that they're given these medications, before you get there as an advanced EMT. So you keep that in mind. Keep in mind what these different levels can or trained to do. This is ever developing and ever changing, just like medicine is. Advanced EMTs have an advanced training in specific aspects of ALS. So once you become and in this training during this course, we'll talk about endotracheal intubation, emergency pharmacology. You have some bases of pharmacology from your EMT level stuff in North Carolina. Cardiac monitoring. We're going to learn different rhythms that you may be faced with, and looking at different patients. Here in North Carolina, we've also got the IO stuff, and IO administration that we'll be able to go over during this course. Training licensure requirements vary by state. This textbook does cover the 09 National EMS Standards. NHTSA is the federal administrative source for curriculum and related documents. So if you got any kind of questions, please look into the NHTSA stuff. It has a federal. AEMTs providing emergency care to the sick and injured. Some patients. So some of the subjects to be discussed will be scene size up, patient assessment, treatment, packaging, and EMS as a career. So, we get to that scene, we've got to be able to size up the situation, be able to report back to the receiving facility. So we got to get that big picture perspective of a call, determine if it is safe to proceed. Do we need law enforcement? Do we need some other type of public safety help, fire department, sometimes we even have to lean into adult protective services and different things like that. Animal control, you might arrive on the scene with an animal that you can't get patient access to, so you'll have to call them out because, I always say that we don't feed those animals, so they may not know us where the patient themselves does feed them. EMS operates in a variety of environments that can be dangerous to us. An EMS provider must always assure his or her health and safety first. So, the occupation assessment is the foundation of any EMS call. The purpose is to determine what is wrong with the patient and which complaints are life-threatening. So we may get those patients with multiple complaints, but, what are we there today to treat these patients for? Ensuring the patient receives appropriate treatment. Do they need that oxygen therapy? Do we need to gain IV access? Control that bleeding really quick. Assisting, we may be delivering babies, or we may just have emotional care and some patients that are going through some emotional crisis. Then we got to be prepared to package these patients and get them out, to transport safely. Make sure that we got the appropriate stretcher to transport these patients and strapping them in the on the stretcher itself. or even to a backboard or some kind of stabilization device. So we have to take care of ourselves in EMS as a career as a whole. And, stress is one of the most difficult things that we have to deal with because it seems like we're always at a low mindset, no stress, and then all of a sudden we're going full speed, doing CPR, trying to get a family member or a patient, stable and as quick as possible. So some requirements at the advanced EMT level are going to differ from state to state. You'll have to look into what each state requires and where your residency is at that time. Um, Most often you do have to have a high school diploma or equivalent, or GED or something. Some type of training itself that is, apt to change in the future. Also, proof of immunization against certain communicable diseases. And you do need to have a valid driver's license. You're gonna have to get to work. You're gonna have to be able to drive the ambulance. Also, you may have to have a background check. The state Office of EMS in North Carolina takes care of this for us. The background check with the FBI, State Bureau of Investigation. Drug screening prior to actual employment with a EMS service, a BLS CPR course, state recognized a advanced EMT course, which is what you're completing right now. A state recognized written certification exam is what you will be completing at the end of this course, and state recognized practical certification exam is what you'll be completing within this course also. So all those components put together, and then you'll probably have to go through a pre-screening job interview at the part-time level or the full-time level within a service to demonstrate that you do meet the psychological and physical criteria necessary to safely and properly perform all tasks and functions. Um, Compliance with other state, local, and employer provisions, which is going to be something that, depending on the job you're going for and where you apply, you'll have to become familiar with that job services requirement. The National Registry of EMTs was established in 1970 to certify and register EMS professionals through a valid and uniform process. Requires recertification every 2 years to ensure continued competence. Most states do recognize National Registry EMT certification, and that does vary from state to state. So most states are going after that general uniform process as far as skills check off and educating with each level of certification. You may be able to gain reciprocity in one state with another state's licensure with the National Registry certification. The American Disabilities Act protects people with disabilities from being denied access to programs and services provided by state and local governments. Does prohibit employers from failing to provide full and equal employment to the disabled, and does protect those with disabilities seeking gainful employment under any circumstances. So employers with 15 or more employees are required to adjust processes so a candidate with a disability can be considered for the position. You may want to contact your state EMS office for more information with and about the ADA compliant as an EMT, an advanced EMT. The history of EMS is still kind of young. It does date back to WW1, where we had voluntary ambulances coming out, and pretty much I call it a grab and go situation with trauma patients, um, especially trained corpsmen that provided field care, took casualties to aid stations in World War II, and then we looked into advanced trauma care resulting from casualty experiences in Korea and Vietnam conflict. The modern EMS originated in 1966 with the publication of Accidental Death and Disability, the Neglected Disease of Modern Society. Um, this report was commonly known as the White Paper, was prepared jointly by the Committees on Trauma and Shock of the National Academy of Science, National Research Council. So this paper reviews serious inadequacies of pre-hospital care and transportation. And so Congress then mandated two agencies to address these issues. NITSA, the Department, NITSA of DOT and the Department of Health and Human Services created funding sources and programs, and then states were required to focus on EMS personnel training and the legislation and regulation of EMS personnel levels. So DOT then published the first EMT training curriculum in the early 1970s. Basically, the reason they were tasked with this job and with DOT is that the railroad system was established, and then we had the National Highway System that established, and there were people dying out on the highways due to the motorized vehicles. So basically, that was looked into from federal people that they needed to start establishing these curriculum and these EMS personnel. Okay, sorry about that. Skip the slide. The Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons prepared the first EMT textbook in 1971. Like I said, it was a bunch of highway accidents and deaths occurred. So, of course, the orthopedic surgeons would be one of the first ones to do an EMT textbook. Through the 1970s, each state developed legislation, and EMS system was created. In 1975, we have the American Medical Association recognized emergency medicine as a medical specialty, and EMS departments became accepted standard of care. During this period, emergency medicine became a recognized emergency medical specialty, and fully staffed EDs became the accepted standard of care. In the 1970s, also, the DOT developed a recommended the national standard curriculum, and this was areas that enhanced the standard curriculum by adding providers with higher levels of training who could provide key components of ALS. So as you can tell, 70s brought about, EMTs and EMT training and emergency medical responders. But, only in the 80s is where we see this advanced level of care as far as us starting to do ALS on patients with cardiac monitor, IV access, that pharmacology piece of giving drugs and helping people out in the pre-hospital setting. So the availability of ALS level care grew. So the roles and responsibilities of EMS providers began to vary from state to state. In the 1980s, in the 1990s, NITSA developed the EMS Agenda for the Future, and this was a document that creates and plans to standardize the levels of EMS education for providers. This Agenda for the Future has been updated also The most recent one you can look at is the EMS agenda and for 2050. If you want to Google that, I plan on putting it on the um, Moodle page so that you can take a look at that also. There are different levels of training. Um, Licensures for EMT, advanced EMT is a state function. So there may be variations in practice training and licensure requirements from state to state. Federal level, the National EMS Scope of Practice Model provides an overarching guidelines for the minimum skills each level of the EMS provider should be able to perform. So at the federal level, they give out, what each level should be able to do. That then goes down into the state level with the North Carolina Office of EMS or your local state level. They do provide laws that regulate EMS provider operations and what each one will be able to um, do and not do as far as skill set and operationally. There's the state oversight. Then you get down into your local level, where your local medical director decides what day-to-day limits each level can do. Examples might be like what medications you may carry. So, you know, um, we here in the Southeast may deal with certain different things on a day-to-day basis more than people out west in the mountain areas. Locally, we here in the Southeast, we're able to get our patients to some type of trauma center, within a quick amount of time. Out west, it may take a whole lot longer to get these patients to a trauma center, and it may depend on exactly where they're at. So another example I'll give you, I met a operations director from California, and she said it doesn't matter what call they have in a certain part of their county, that these patients will probably more than likely get transported to a hospital into the city by helicopter, and it's only due to the travel time and the transport time that they have, dealing with traffic at certain peak times during the day, and, those different operations. Um, you're going to deal with a lot of people trained as lay people, and I think this is a great asset to us as advanced EMTs, that they are being taught some basic knowledge to help us out and to help us better do patient assessment quicker, so that we can get these patients transported out. So a lot of places are doing the BLS training with CPR. A lot more AEDs are being put out into the public sector itself. So you may deal with people at Walmart that are trained in BLS and CPR at the local gas stations. All teachers and coaches in the education system are being trained. Even at the babysitters at your local daycares, they're being trained in BLS, in CPR. So, and this is even being reached out that hopefully in the near future we'll have the Stop the Bleed campaign. So there's a lot of different things out there. We see FAST on a lot of billboards and being publicized for stroke patients. So don't underestimate these people's knowledge and how they've been trained. So and it's really designed to provide necessary critical care before we can arrive, because we're not always just around the corner. It may take us 10, 15, 20 minutes to get to these patients sometimes, depending on what's going on during a operational period. AEDs are out there, and churches have them. Your local shopping facilities have them. Gas stations may have them. So they are there to correct arrhythmias and deliver appropriate electrical shocks. They are designed to be used by untrained lay people. That's why when we open up AEDs now, it gives us step by step what to do. So, and I think that's going to be a great asset to us. And I've used been able to be just a basic CPR BLS provider before, and it has made a difference. So, emergency medical responders may include local law enforcement, firefighters, park rangers, ski patrollers. These guys, ladies and gentlemen, are there to train in the initial immediate care and assist other EMS personnel on their arrival. Um, use these personnel to help you do assessments, to help you get your patient packaged, um, to maybe get those basic vital signs for you. Good Samaritans trained in first aid and CPR often do show up at scenes. They could be a valuable assistance, but they may also interfere with operations and endanger themselves and others. Sometimes they run up into things that are not safe. Um, Sometimes they're not familiar with your equipment. So, if they're not familiar with what you have, you may have to coach them through it. And this may be an opportunity for you within the EMS system to go out and train your local community with your equipment, and with what your service offers and provides to the community itself. Emergency medical technicians is usually about 150-hour course, and hopefully everybody's had this course prior to taking this course. So they may arrive on scene. Advanced EMTs and other providers assume responsibility for assessment, care, packaging, and transporting the patient to the ED. So, you may have an EMT get there, they give you a swing size up, and a patient assessment they've done. Hopefully, both of these assessments are, initial patient assessments are about the same. So make sure you correlate with these folks, your EMTs are on scene, but you may also have to go back and make sure that, something hasn't been missed as far as your training and your knowledge. Advanced emergency medical technicians and skills in specific aspects of ALS. So this course is usually range from 200 to 400 hours. It's an expanded range of skills beyond the emergency medical technician. Provides limited ALS care to regions where paramedics are not available. So you're able to get that IV access on these patients and have that there ready for hospital care. So paramedics is an extensive course of training. Ranges from 1 to 1,300 hours, usually equally divided between classroom and internship training, and increasingly offered within a context of an associate or bachelor degree college program. We're looking into the future here a little bit, where you may be required to have that 2-year degree or 4-year degree to test at the paramedic level. There's a lot of pros and cons to this, and then it's still being looked at and into for the future. So, EMS agenda for the future is a multidisciplinary national review outlining all aspects of the EMS delivery. It was first published by NHTSA in 1996. The intent of the agenda is to develop a more cohesive and consistent system across the United States. So, basically there are 14 EMS attributes which will guide the principles for the continued evolution of EMS. The EMS it varies from state to state, depending on what part of the United States you're in. And we deal with a lot of hurricanes and stuff and different weather types in southeastern North Carolina or southeastern part of the United States. Where out west they may deal with much drier conditions and fires. So our perspective and the way we treat people may be somewhat different, and we may all follow different guidelines. But hopefully, in the future, all this will be uniform and somewhat along the same guidelines. Uh, you can go from state to state, so and operate at the same level and understand each other's language. Um, Here in the southeast of North Carolina, recently with hurricanes, we've had a lot of different help from outside states. So, understanding what they could and couldn't do at their level um, was, somewhat of a misunderstanding. But, if we get all uniformed, we'll all understand what each level can do in each state. In 1999, NITSTA and the Maternal and Child Health Bureau with Health Resources and Service Administration developed the EMS agenda for the future implementation guide, and it does look at 10 priority objectives um, aimed at leading us closer to achieving all the components outlined in the EMS agenda for the future. The objectives correspond with 3 priority areas of particular: build bridges to strengthen partnerships and relationships with agencies, organizations, and individuals. So, how does the call start? How do we get started as far as calling for help in the pre-hospital setting? So, you have a lot of public access to help in an emergency is essential. Um, Most everywhere in the United States, an emergency communication center that dispatches fire, police, rescue, and EMS unit can be reached by dialing 911. Um, So, then you have communication centers that is usually the public safety access point. You have trained dispatchers that obtain information and dispatch the ambulance crew and other equipment and responders. So, and even this is evolving and changing because we have gone into the cell phone era. So you may be able to text 911 here in the near future with certain updates. You may be able to FaceTime 911 operators. So, that's looking into their jobs also as far as, in the past they haven't been able to visualize these things unless they were mentally visualizing them to where now they may actually have a face to face, well, not really face to face, human face to face, but actually be able to visualize with the technology or with the cell phone what's going on. Enhanced 911 systems provide additional data like their addresses, the phone numbers of the caller, um, be able to track GPS down with these cell phones. The training the public on how to summon an EMS unit is an important part of public education's responsibility. Um, so, dispatchers will be able to track a caller with the GPS system or cell phone as they're going down the road. Now you may have we have a local highway that is 50 miles long from one point of our county to the other point, and hopefully these 911 dispatchers will be able to watch that person travel so that we can have an up-to-date location on these patients. We do have some special equipment for people with speech and hearing disabilities. Um, Training the public on how to summon an EMS unit is an important part of public education. Social media may play an involving role in allowing lay people trained in CPR to be alerted of a cardiac arrest in their area. Um, we see that out in other countries. I've seen it as far as people having their phones and their social media accounts to notify them that hey, there's a cardiac arrest event, real close to them. If you're trained in CPR, you can be alerted and you can go over and maybe help with chest compressions or even an AED. So, EMV systems assist dispatchers in giving callers vital instructions until EMS arrives. So EMD systems are great. They help us prioritize calls, um, at the Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo levels, or whatever system you do use locally. Provides helps dispatchers select appropriately resourced units. So hey, we don't want to always send fire departments and law enforcement to an Alpha call. They may not be needed, or maybe the caller calls back and says, hey, this patient's getting worse. Then we can get those appropriate resources to them. So, this is because, right now, locally, dispatchers cannot see what's going on at the scene. The reality of the call may be different from dispatch information. So, dispatchers can only rely on that information they're given by the caller. So, but, as the future comes and we may be using different technology to where those dispatchers can see what's going on, this stuff may change. So from the call, you will have a wide range of equipment to use. Check your equipment before going on duty. So you get ready to start your day. Even when you're doing your clinical care, you need to go out there to your truck. You need to know what equipment you're expected to have and what you're not expected to have on your unit. Whether it be a quick response vehicle or it may be a full ambulances of different designs. You need to make sure it's working properly each day before your shift, and you need to make sure you're familiar with specific models and makes of the equipment. Even down to the IV catheters, there's a whole lot of different IV catheters out there. Cardiac monitors, stretchers are evolving even now. So you may be called on to drive the ambulance, become familiar with the roads in your public service area or sector. Make sure you understand how your roads are laid out, what the names of them are, how you can get from one point to the next point. So make sure you check your equipment and supplies. The communications equipment, usually most units check on duty each shift and then they check off duty. Your vehicle, it needs to be in good operating order. One crew may drive it all night long or the shift before you, but you get on it, you may have a headlight that just blew. So you're going to have to check that and make sure that those functions do work. Your driver controls, built-in units and controls the patient compartment. So make sure your exhaust fan works in the back of your unit. Make sure all your lights are working in the back of your unit. Make sure your heating and air works appropriately. If you got a thermostat control, you've got a hot cold control. So human resources deals with people within the EMS system that provides an environment where talented people can work and want to work and can turn their passion into a career that is rewarding down the line. So efforts are being made to ensure EMS providers can relocate from one state to another more seamlessly and without a whole lot of complications. But that takes one of the functions is the National EMS Scope of Practice model to create stable foundations on which each level EMS provider is grounded. So the EMS agenda for the future encourages the creation of systems that help to protect the well-being of EMS providers. So medical direction and control, and you will work with a local medical director. So usually this is a physician, practicing physician. They're even wanting them to be able to practice locally, within your local EMS system itself. So they provide medical direction, authorizes providers to give medical care in the field. Appropriate care is described in standing orders and protocols. So protocols are a comprehensive guide to um, give you your scope of practice on each call and what to do, hopefully, with each patient. Standing orders are part of protocols that designate what an advanced EMT is required to do for a specific complaint or condition. Providers are not required to consult medical control before implementing standard orders. So, you've got standard protocols and standard policies and procedures that you can do without calling a medical control um, in the field. So you have to be able to do those on your own and make sure that you have a patient and are able to follow your local protocols. And you have to provide each patient with that specific care with what your local medical direction has given you to do. So medical directors is a working liaison amongst medical community hospitals and advanced EMTs. So, it works. A medical director works with the community that you're in your public service area, and then it works with the local hospital, hopefully also, and with hospitals throughout your whole network. And then it's going to put all this together for you so that you can provide appropriate care to your patient. So it could be online medical direction. Online medical direction is that that the physician directs you, giving you, orders over the phone or over the radio. Hey, you might have a patient that you think could benefit with something that doesn't fall within your protocol and procedures. All you got to do is call and say, hey, look, doc, this is what I got. Can we do something about this? It can be your physician's designee. You may not have your medical director may not be there, and hopefully won't be there all the time. Hopefully, you won't have to call him. So he may have a designee in the emergency room or somewhere that can give you local online medical direction too. So, but please, when you do this online medical direction, make sure you understand each other. Make sure you say back what he said or he or she has said to you, so that everybody's on the same page. So offline is standing orders, training, supervision authorized by a medical director. Offline, direction is standing policies and procedures that you can do without having to call anyone. Training and protocols follow state legislation, rules, regulations, and guidelines. Medical directors, EMS supervisors, and others develop protocols for the service area. State EMS is responsible for authorizing, auditing, and regulating all EMS systems, training institution courses, instructors, and providers within the state. And our state office EMS does a great job of that, from the initial education to the content education to quality of improvement to day-to-day operations and patient care. So EMS is usually administered by a senior EMS official. You may call them a chief, a director, something along that lines. The chief executive officer of the service is in charge of the necessary administrative tasks, such as scheduling, personnel budgets, purchasing, and vehicle maintenance, and the daily operations of the ambulance and crews. It is, it's similar to like a fire police chief. And they may have their designees for each one of these tasks also. They are not in charge of medical matters. That's where this falls back into your medical direction, and they have to take over those particular matters. If somebody sees something wrong, then they have to consult with them as far as what to do. Pre-hospital care is coordinated with the care administered at the hospital. When you deliver a patient to the ED, you're simply transferring the patient to another care provider. Some EMSs have collaborated with local hospitals to improve patient outcomes associated with time-sensitive treatment, which include heart attacks, strokes, trauma patients. So, we are looking to make sure that these patients get to the perfect level of care, so that they can get the most quickest treatment, for them, um, to help reverse these initial, problems. Mobile integrated healthcare is a new system of developing healthcare that utilizes the pre-hospital spectrum. Um, it's evolved as a result of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, offers access to care to patients who live in communities with limited medical resources. So, basically, what you're looking at here is the community paramedicine, um, experience and evolving, day-to-day practice. So these are, experienced paramedics. They receive advanced training to equip them to provide services within the community. Um, kind of in a non-emergency situation. Hopefully, sometimes it does become emergent, and we have to follow different steps there. It is some more training. It's a different way of patient care and a different look at the patient, um, with the Affordable Care Act. Um, Hospitals do look at some, um, infractions sometimes, if a patient continues to come back and back and back to their facility. So we, involved paramedicine to help keep these patients at home, um, as far as keeping them out of the hospital. Evaluation, you have a medical director that contains quality control. He may have a QI or QA process, and it reviews and audits all aspects of an EMS call. Then you're going to have to refresher training and continue education is also important. So please make sure you're familiar with your local, um, policies as far as county and in education. That QA/QI process. Some places are able to look at every call, and they review every call, and order it if necessary. Some places look at certain calls, and a lot of that can go back to your medical director. Um, so periodic run review meetings are held. Areas of improvement and positive feedback are discussed. So, there may be times when an error does occur, communicating with other advanced EMTs or transferring the patient to the ED. Um, you may be drawn to a scene that is hazardous. Um, Patients can be dropped during lifting and movement, and these are things that need to be looked back into and saying, hey, how can we improve this, and how can we correct this problem? Uh, an evaluation also helps you look at ask you, why am I doing this? Um, why did you choose to make that choice as far as a drug and you gave it to that patient? We'll learn some more in-depth things about drug administration. Um, so, why did I choose this protocol for this patient? Um, so, can we go back and look at this and try to find a way to correct this action? So, can you use a cheat sheet, to limit error? So, we don't have, pediatric patients a lot of the time. Most of our patients are adult ages. That's why we came out with a Broadway tape, to help limit these errors. So, use downtown to refresh skills, um, that are used less often. So, you may have a procedure that you can do that we don't do all the time. So use your downtime to look back and look at this procedure, and let's just go step by step through it. Or we may see a rhythm that we don't see all the time. You may want to look at it and say, hey, this is how I identify this rhythm. All EMS providers to efficiently document emergency medical care that has been delivered in your information system. Um, it is used for a variety of purposes: construct educational sessions for the department, justifying hiring more personnel, the purchase of new equipment. That data collection piece of EMS is ever evolving, and that's what we are asked to use to um, help guide the way the local department's going. So, finances funding allows EMS departments to continue to provide care. Um, Money rules the world sometimes, and this is how we may have like a paid department that have paid personnel on staff all the time. You may have volunteer departments out there also. You're starting to see those decrease, but you never know. There may be still people that want to, out there and want to volunteer their time. So then you may have a combo of both. Financial resources are available for EMS departments through taxation of your local citizens, um, a fee for service. We may charge you for each service that we provide, whether it's transported to the hospital or it's a treated and released patient. You may have paid this subscription. So people pay monthly subscriptions for your services in your local area. Some places still take donations. That helps out a lot of times. Federal, state, local grants. We may have state grants available, federal grants. A lot of times look at those regional concepts. So that's why you won't be really familiar with your regional partners. And then you may have fundraisers also to help provide, funds for some things. Your instructors for advanced EMT courses are approved and licensed by the state office of EMS or agency. Most EMS training programs must adhere to national standards established by accredited organizations. Um, for example, your AEMT Committee of Accreditation of Educational Programs for the Emergency Medical Services Professions, and KHELP, which is the Commission on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs. So all these federal programs provide, rules and regulations that you have to follow at your local education center to be able to test out at either the national level or the local state level. So ALS instructors and directors must hold a 4-year degree. Um, this is ever changing locally here in North Carolina. So there's a lot of pros and cons of this too. A certain number of hours of content approved for advanced EMT must be completed each year also. Public health examines the health needs of the entire populations with the goal of preventing health problems. So significant accomplishments of the public health system include vaccination programs, helmet and seatbelt laws, tobacco use laws, prenatal screening, and formation of the FDA. EMS works with public health agencies on 2 strategies. Primary prevention focuses on strategies that will help prevent the event from ever happening. Like vaccinations are an example. So secondary prevention occurs after the event has already happened. The question then is, how can we decrease the effects of the event? Helmets and seatbelts are examples. So advanced EMTs can help educate the public on a one-to-one basis after an accident has occurred. Going to local schools and teaching children to call 911 during an emergency. Working with a healthcare institution to inform local residents when to call for an ambulance and when other transportation is more appropriate. Teaching people how to do perform CPR and helping a choked victim or assist in the delivery of a baby. We're also into seatbelt stuff and child safety seats. Those are great ways to get your EMS folks out there. Your EMTs and advanced EMTs, and the paramedics to go out and do education on appropriately installing child safety seats in a car. That also looks into when a kid's walking around, airbag safety, where kids should be positioned into the vehicle itself. And then you can look into chest compression on CPR. Teach those caregivers right quick how to do chest compressions on certain age, related patients. EMS research is ongoing research provides a scientific basis for standards. EMS research may be performed by EMS providers and other people who are studying a particular branch of medicine. EMS in the early years means standards related to professionalism, protocols, training, and equipment, and they will be developed from EMS providers' direct experience. Now, ongoing research provides a scientific basis for standards. So then you have the research from the evidence-based decision-making that is becoming an integral part of the EMS function. EMS research may be performed by EMS providers and or other people who are studying a particular branch of medicine. Advanced EMTs will typically be involved through gathering data. You are involved in a study, record all information carefully, and traditional medical practice is based on such research. So research can also be done at each EMS facility. It's important for EMS providers to stay up to date on the latest advances of medicine. When reading new research results, make sure you understand what they mean. EMS research information can be powerful, but is often powerful within a very limited setting. So be skeptical, ask questions, and conduct some of your own research. This drug gets introduced into the pre-hospital environment. They obviously are going to do some runs with it, or they may change the way that we treat patients. So, maybe we won't give this drug anymore, and we'll do, this one certain thing. So it has to be studied. With that study, there comes research, and there comes data collection, and how are we going to collect that data? So then all that's you turn back over, and we look into it, and then that gives us the latest, up-to-date way to care for our patients. The pros and cons of each side of it. Transport to specialty centers. Some centers focus on specific types of care, such as trauma, or specific types of patients, such as children. That transport time may be longer. However, that may be the facility of most appropriate care. So you may have trauma centers that provide more focused, specific care to what's going on with your patient, such as burns, psychiatric conditions. A lot of these trauma centers do require in-house staff or surgeons and other specialties, so they have to be there and ready to be to go within a certain amount of time. Typically, only a few hospitals in a region are designated specialty centers. Transport time to a specific center may be slightly longer. However, patients will receive definitive care more quickly at a specialty center. So, please know the location of your specialty center in your region and the protocol for your transport to these centers. You may be required to have air medical transport. There's pros and cons to air medical transport also. Inter-facility transports may be between hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, and a home's residence. So, inter-facility transports is transportation of a non-ambulatory patient or patients with acute chronic medical conditions requiring medical monitoring. It may be between hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, board or care homes, or actual patients' residence. So during these transports, advanced EMTs are responsible for the health and well-being of the patient. You may be having to obtain the patient's medical history, a check complaint, why they're going from one facility to another, and provide ongoing patient assessment. So with vital signs. So a nurse, physician, or medical staff, and other provider may accompany the patient in certain. You need to become familiar with your hospital. You need to become familiar with how their equipment, how it's used, what functions of each staff member there, whether it be the registration person all the way up to the provider in the whatever department you're going into. You may be going into the emergency room, and you may talk to a mid-level provider at the F&P PA level, or you may be actually talking to an MD or DO of some sort, um, or you may be talking to a student or resident at some of these facilities also. So policy and procedures in emergency areas so that you make sure that you're following their local guidelines and rules and regulations within their facilities. So you want to consult your medical staff by radio. Um, this is one reason why here locally within North Carolina the VIPER system was brought into play. So patient care occurs with rapport between all emergency care providers. We start here in the pre-hospital environment. Starting at the dispatcher, giving out the call, and it goes all the way up into the rehab. All of this data is collected till that patient is released home, hopefully at the same function as before the incident occurred. Become familiar with the roles and responsibilities of the public safety workers. Um, this is a quick look at some of the roles and responsibilities in advanced EMTs. Keeping your vehicle and equipment ready for service. Uh, ensure the safety of your patient, your partner, and bystanders. All the way down to upholding the medical and legal standards, ensure and protect patient privacy, give administrative support, and constantly continue professional development. So here are some professional attributes of an advanced EMT. Integrity, empathy, self-motivation, appearance and hygiene, self-confidence, time management, communication, teamwork, and diplomacy, respect for others, and also respect for yourself. Also being that patient advocate. Um, sometimes you have to stick up for your patient and what's going on with them, and your careful delivery of. Every patient is entitled to compassion, respect, and the best care. And always remember, whether you're paid or volunteer, you are a healthcare professional, and you want to always set that um, um, you always want to set that initial confidence in your patient. Um, some responders come out in the shorts and flip flops, and they look like a regular lay person out there every day. But when you come in on that ambulance, they expect you to be as professional as possible, so that you gain the respect from the patient itself. So always remember, if you must discuss a call with other providers, avoid information that may disclose the name or the identity of the patient. HIPAA does play a humongous role in what we do on a day-to-day basis. So you may want to become familiar with your local requirements of this legislation. Is a paramedic on it, or EMT, or an advanced EMT on that fire engine. A lot of the paid municipality fire departments do have at least an EMT. The whole engine crew may be EMT level, or they may have a paramedic on that engine also. You may get part of the police department. A lot of our police departments now are carrying AEDs, sheriff's offices, different things like that. They're also carrying Narcan to help with the opioid epidemic. So they may be coming out also. As new technology helps responders locate their patients, such as stereo phones to lead to GPS units. And I think this is great. As they're traveling down the road, and we're trying to find them. We may have a hunter out in the woods, or a lost boat crew out in the water somewhere, and if they're able to use their cell phones, and we're able to track them down using GPS. So our immediate attention, cardiac problems, some stroke calls, respiratory calls, all those are life-threatening when the patient may be feeling like they're near that death Others may require supportive care. Some things we can't do a whole lot about, and we need to get them to a facility of perfect care. So we may be just there to transport them, maybe insert IV access just in case they need to get some treatment once they arrive at the hospital.